The heir to the wealthy Maxwell fortune, Leo, got into a car crash that left his legs paralyzed. So, the Maxwell family posted a job opening. Daughter-in-law wanted, high salary. Must be willing to accept our son's special circumstances. Ideally, she will also be able to bear him several children. Full of confidence, I aced the interview. Sensing Mrs. Maxwell's apprehension, I patted her hand reassuringly. Don't worry. I've got my methods. Later, faced with 3 grandsons, 1 granddaughter, and me with another one on the way, a frantic Mrs. Maxwell asked her son. Are you sure you're paralyzed? Marry a paralyzed man? No freaking way, is what a dog would say. A dog wouldn't, but I would. Not only will I marry him, but I'm going to have his kids. Last year, the Maxwell heir, Leo Maxwell, got into a race car accident. He was in a coma for over 6 months, and when he finally woke up, he was paralyzed from the waist down and his fiancée had run for the hills. This year, the Maxwells took an even more drastic step, posting a job opening that sent shockwaves through the city. Daughter-in-law wanted, high salary. Must be willing to accept our son's special circumstances. Ideally, she will also be able to bear him several children. Note, the monthly salary is $1 million. Children are compensated separately. The second I got the news, I cleaned myself up and stormed the Maxwell estate to answer the call. I have to say, a lot of people showed up. In the end, I beat out all the competition. After a week of training, the butler led me to Mrs. Maxwell. She was resting her forehead in her hand, her face etched with worry. I have just one requirement. If you can spend the entire night in the same bed with him, the pay is $100,000. $100,000 for one night? I blinked and immediately accepted. No problem. Hearing this, Mrs. Maxwell's head snapped up. She looked at me, half skeptical. Are you sure you can handle it? She hesitated, as if there was something she couldn't bring herself to say. Leo, right now he's... I took her hand and said earnestly, Ma'am, don't worry. I've got plenty of ways. Mrs. Maxwell, the butler, and the housekeeper all watched as I walked into the bedroom. Oh, right. They were also secretly placing bets behind my back. I bet she's out in 3 minutes, tops. The young master will throw her out. I'll bet 1 minute. I'll go with 5. Get out. The handsome man lying on the bed spoke coldly the moment he heard the door open. I ignored him, strode over to his side, and in the blink of an eye. Just as he was about to say a second word, I kissed him. Shoo. I pressed my index finger to his lips, meeting his utterly shocked gaze, and whispered. Be a good boy, baby. Say something I want to hear. The air trembled with rage, his whole body flushing red as a lobster. Who gave you permission to kiss me? Moi, I did it again. Why do you keep asking me to kiss you? You like me, don't you? The air struggled to argue. I don't like you. You get, MMPH. Baby, your lips are so soft. I'd kissed him into submission. His gorgeous, misty eyes stared blankly at the ceiling, and he fell silent. I grinned, lifted the covers, and slid in next to him. You. Leo looked at me, shocked and mortified, his body instinctively shrinking away. I batted my eyes, feigning innocence. What's wrong? I stretched out an arm and pulled him into a full embrace. If you move back any further, you'll fall off the bed. Leo's face turned a deep shade of crimson. He struggled to push me away, but his hands accidentally grabbed my chest. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I laughed magnanimously. It's okay. You're my future husband, and I'm your future wife. It's no big deal if you get a little handsy. Leo turned his face away, his voice dropping. I'm not getting married. Not getting married? That's not going to happen. I grabbed his hand as he tried to pull it away and pressed it firmly against my chest, rubbing it a few times. So? Are they big enough for you? Leo, now red as a boiled shrimp, stammered. Have you no shame? But you're my husband. Nonsense. We're not married yet. I said in a coaxing tone, then let's get married. Leo turned to look me straight in the eye, his lips trembling, unable to form a single word. Huh. I heard countless applicants had been scared off by his temper. How come he just folded with me? Guess I'm just that charming. Leo's voice was hoarse, and he didn't dare try to kick me out again. He just let me use a damp towel to wash his face and neck. I want to see my mom. I cupped a hand to my ear. What? I didn't quite hear you. I want to see my mom, he repeated, his voice weaker. I pretended to clean out my ear again. What did you say? Leo took a deep breath and mumbled through his half-covered mouth. How am I supposed to know your name? My name is Wifey. Go on, call me Wifey and I'll go get Mrs. Maxwell for you. Leo's mouth dropped open, his eyes wide with shock. You. Moi. I shot him a playful glare. If you want a kiss, you just have to say so. Leo's eyes quickly turned red, his lips trembling. Why Wifey? Yes, dear. I quickly opened the door and invited Mrs. Maxwell, Indiana. I didn't forget to take credit. Ma'am, didn't I tell you not to worry? The way Mrs. Maxwell looked at me, you'd think I was a once-in-a-millennium savior. She looked like she wanted to carry me around on a satin pillow. You're really something else. Mom. Mrs. Maxwell hurried over to him. My sweet boy, have you finally come around to planning the wedding? Leo pointed at me, his face blushing again. I'm not marrying her. Oh, that won't do. I heard you call her Wifey with my own ears. The Maxwells don't go back on their word. I blinked, tears threatening to spill from my eyes. I looked at Leo mournfully. Honey, you already copped a feel. Aren't you going to take responsibility? Mrs. Maxwell chimed in from the side. You've already inspected the goods. How can you have the nerve to ask for a return? That's not how the world works. Son, Ivy is such a wonderful girl, so devoted to you. What more could you want? Besides, was that girl from the Xia family really all that? So great that she ran for the hills the second you got into trouble? Is she really worth saving yourself for? The three questions left Leo pale-faced. But he was still fighting. But I don't like her. Mrs. Maxwell shot him a glare. It doesn't matter if you like her. What matters is that Ivy likes you. Leo glanced at me. What if she doesn't really like me? What if she just likes our family's money? Mrs. Maxwell poked him sharply. Son, don't be a fool. In your current condition, anyone who likes you is better off liking your money. Our family has more than enough of that. We can certainly afford a daughter-in-law who knows how to spend it. At least you have one quality that Ivy likes. That's a blessing. Leo's face turned dark with humiliation. In life, marrying a good wife is a blessing for 3 generations. Don't be ungrateful. Just get married, be happy, and build a good life with Ivy. That's more important than anything. Stop being difficult and be good to Ivy. Leo's gaze was icy, his lips pressed into a thin line. Mom, I don't. Mrs. Maxwell's wails cut him off. My life is so tragic. I only had one child, you, and I changed every single one of your diapers and raised you. We finally built this business, but before I could enjoy it, your father passed away. And now you. Leo's eyes were bloodshot, and he was trembling all over. I stepped forward and took his hand, placing it on my cheek. Is heaven trying to destroy the Maxwells? Is our family line going to end? When I die, how will I ever face your father, boo-hoo? Stop crying. I didn't say I wouldn't get married. Mrs. Maxwell's expression changed in a flash. So you'll do it? Good, good. We'll have the wedding next week. She patted my shoulder and gave me a solemn instruction. Daughter-in-law, I'm entrusting Leo to you. How you handle him is your business. You don't need to ask me. Alright, son, you two get some sleep. I'm leaving. With a wave of her sleeve, Mrs. Maxwell made a swift and stylish exit. Poor Leo was left with his mouth hanging open, unable to get a word in. I leaned in close and asked earnestly, "Ready for bed, honey?" It was a done deal. Leo resigned himself to his fate. As I changed into a sexy nightgown and was about to slide into his bed, he finally spoke. "I need to set 3 ground rules with you." I propped my head up with one hand, watching him with amusement. Leo's face quickly flushed, and he said bashfully, Don't look at me like that." Nope. I wasn't having it. Why not? You're handsome. Why shouldn't I look at you? Looking at you helps me sleep better at night. Leo's chest rose and fell unevenly. I simply leaned over and pressed my ear to his heart. Thump, thump, thump. His heart was pounding like a drum. I lifted my head, resting my chin on his chest, and asked with wide-eyed innocence, "Honey, why is your heart beating so fast?" Leo's body went rigid, his normally pale skin now a light pink. He ground out through his teeth, "First, you're not allowed to sleep under the same blanket as me. Second, you can't kiss me whenever you feel like it. Third." Before he could finish, he sucked in a sharp breath. He grabbed the hand I was using to draw circles on his chest. "Did you hear what I said?" "I heard you," I answered obediently, not forgetting to plant another kiss on his cheek. Then I added innocently, "You can't blame me. You're just too good looking. I can't help but kiss you." Leo pushed me to the side, stubborn as a mule. "I can marry you, but only if you respect me." God is my witness, I was respecting him. But at least he'd finally agreed to marry me. It was a good start. "Fine, I promise." Leo snuck a glance at me, then quickly looked away. "Then repeat my 3 rules." "Okay. First, I can't sleep under the same blanket as you. Sharing the same bed is fine, though. Second, I can't kiss you whenever I want. Third, you haven't thought of it yet?" Leo's breath hitched. He took a deep breath and said, "You can't get too close to me. That's not going to work. I promised Mrs. Maxwell I'd provide you with personal, round-the-clock care. If you don't let me get close, how am I supposed to take care of you?" Leo frowned, his dark eyes dimming. "All right, well, you can tell me when you think of it. It's getting late, honey. Let's go to sleep." Mwah. Leo covered his lips, looking like a startled rabbit. "You promised me." I feigned forgetfulness, tapping my forehead. "Oh, sorry, I forgot. I'll remember next time." "You have to. Don't forget again." "Okay." The next morning, I crawled out from under the covers, pretending not to notice the angry look on Leo's face. Oh my gosh. It was so cold last night, I was absolutely freezing. Then I dreamed I found a big, warm furnace and just had to hug it. I warmed right up. "I can't believe that furnace was you." "Thanks, honey." Seeing how sincere I was, Leo's face turned an unfortunate shade of red again. "Just, be more careful next time." I was going to help him get dressed, but he refused, dead set against it. Ivy song, even though we're about to get married, I'm a man of principle. I hope you can understand that. I didn't understand. We were about to be husband and wife, why sweat the small stuff? But since he put it that way, I had to drop it. I went out to find Mrs. Maxwell to collect my payment, a cool $100,000. Mrs. Maxwell paid up instantly and even gave me a new assignment. Have a baby. Boy or girl, doesn't matter. $5 million when you get pregnant, $10 million when you give birth. Now that's a good deal. Mrs. Maxwell, just wait for my good news. After breakfast, Mrs. Maxwell had the driver take us to look at rings. Once we arrived, Leo sent the bodyguards away. Ivy song, do you really want to marry me? What a question. Why else would I have gone through all this trouble? Of course. He stared into my eyes and demanded, then do you like me? I like you. Liar. Leo's ears turned red, but he kept a straight face. I know you're only marrying me for the money. Well, that was part of it. Leo's clear eyes suddenly clouded over. I'm a broken man. I can't give you happiness. Besides, I already have someone I love. I did not like the sound of that. So what if you're broken? Does that mean you don't deserve to be loved? Besides, you're not a broken man. You're Leo Maxwell, my future husband. I placed his hand on my chest, hoping he could feel my heartbeat. But this guy just didn't get it. He struggled to pull back, refusing to meet my eyes. No choice. I sat down on his lap and cupped his chin, forcing him to look at me. Leo Maxwell, I don't care if there's someone else in your heart or who you love. All you need to know is that after we get married, my heart will be full of you, and your eyes will be full of me. That's enough. Leo's face flushed a deep red, his breathing becoming ragged. What's wrong? It hurts. Oh, right. His legs weren't completely useless, he still had some feeling. Starting tomorrow, you're doing physical therapy. If you don't, I'll kiss you to death. Looking at his luscious red lips, I couldn't resist stealing another kiss. After I finally coaxed him out of the car and into the jewelry store, Leo's face immediately darkened. A bodyguard whispered in my ear, "Ma'am, the woman in the black mermaid dress at 10 o'clock is the young master's ex-fiancée, Serena. The man next to her is Chad, a trust fund baby and a total simp." So that's what this was. A reunion of old lovers was bound to start a war. I patted Leo's shoulder to give him a little boost. Don't be scared. I've got your back. A tall man stood beside Serena, his arm around her waist as they looked at jewelry together. Mr. Maxwell, the custom ring you ordered is ready. As you requested, it's a 10-carat pink diamond sourced from South Africa and designed by an Italian artist. The sales associate's voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to turn a few heads. Serena and the man both turned around. A soft scoff. The engagement is off, and you're still thinking about marrying Serena? Leo, do yourself a favor and take a good look in the mirror. In your state, how could you possibly be worthy of her? Serena's gaze was dark. She glanced at Leo, her lips sealed tight. They were in love once, weren't they? Even if the engagement was broken, was she just going to let her new beau humiliate her ex? Especially since her new guy was nothing but a rich bully. I let out a cold laugh, sweeping a contemptuous glance over the two of them. Wow, big words from such a small man. You're all talk, so full of yourselves it's sickening. A real piece of work, aren't you? What kind of freak show are you supposed to be? Utterly shameless. Did you swallow a bottle of laxatives? Because you're spewing nothing but crap. Open your damn eyes and see for yourself. My husband had this ring custom made for me. I took the box and handed it to Leo. Honey, hurry up and put it on me. For you? Who are you? Serena glared at Leo, but her words were directed at me. I stepped sideways to block her view, my attitude turning haughty. I'm the Maxwell family's daughter-in-law, Leo's fiancée. Didn't you know? Oh well, it's not like you're anyone important. My mother-in-law must have had her reasons for not inviting you. Tears welled up in Serena's eyes. Leo, you tell her. Who was that ring really for? I turned and whispered into Leo's ear. This is about pride. Don't you dare let me lose face. Leo's long lashes fluttered as he lowered his gaze. His fingers trembled slightly as he gently and carefully slid the dazzling pink diamond onto my middle finger. Coincidentally, it was a perfect fit. I turned to show it off to Serena and the trust fund baby. Look at that, isn't it beautiful? The size is just right. Couldn't be a better fit for me. Not like some people, who don't appreciate what they have and then get jealous when someone else comes along. The trust fund baby tried to comfort the tearful Serena. Serena, don't stoop to her level. You can tell she's just some country bumpkin with no class. Oh, please. I may be a bumpkin, but I like my diamonds blindingly bright. If you're so great, why don't you buy Miss Serena here an identical 10-carat pink diamond? You. Me what? If you can't put your money where your mouth is, then shut up. We wouldn't want to disappoint your dear Miss Serena, now would we? Chad's face was a kaleidoscope of ugly colors. Serena finally snapped. Leo, are you just going to stand there and let her humiliate me? Leo looked at her coolly, his tone devoid of any emotion. I've spoiled Ivy rotten. You'll just have to bear with her. Leo, you never used to be like this, Serena said, her eyes brimming with tears, looking utterly pitiful. You said it yourself, that was the past. She is my fiancée now, and I won't allow anyone to wrong her. Serena's face went white. She leaned on Chad's shoulder and sobbed, looking heartbroken. Leo, are you doing this on purpose to embarrass Serena? You two were childhood friends for years, and now you're publicly shaming her for some seductress. No wonder the bodyguard called him a simp. He couldn't even simp right. Ha! This is between them. Since when did an outsider like you get a say? Were you hiding under their bed when they were together? I crossed my arms, thoroughly unimpressed. Besides, the moment we walked in, you started insulting my husband. Why didn't she speak up for him then? Some childhood friend. The second Leo had an accident, she ran faster than anyone. Who the hell do you think you are? Chad's face was livid with rage. Your worst nightmare. Chad pointed a finger at me and took a step forward, only to be flipped over the shoulder by a bodyguard. The next second, Serena rushed toward Leo, raising her hand. Leo, are you crazy? I caught her wrist firmly and, with a slight push, sent her stumbling back. You're the one who's crazy, still unable to figure out your place. Since the engagement is off, don't use my husband's leftover pity for you to do whatever you want. You want to have your cake and eat it too? It's pathetic. On the way back, Leo was silent. But I was too busy to notice, completely captivated by the pink diamond. Even the fire of the gem was dazzling. I'm sorry. Huh? I was a little confused and a little panicked. According to every novel plot I knew, an apology was usually followed by either the let's just be friends speech or a full-on breakup. Leo wasn't about to back out, was he? What's wrong? He gave me a deep look before speaking. You were judged by others because of me. Hearing that, I breathed a sigh of relief. Is that all? It's fine. I didn't pay it any mind. Meeting his confused gaze, I continued, because to me, Serena and Chad are completely unimportant. Since they don't matter, why should I care what they say? I know who I am, and I don't need to fall into self-doubt because of a few words from two nobodies. After a pause, I asked softly, do you think I'm the kind of person Serena said I was? Of course not, he blurted out without a second thought. Then that's all that matters. I only care what you think of me. Leo blushed. I pulled at my collar to show him my bare neck. Look, besides the ring, don't you think I need some other jewelry? He replied with a single word, buy. At a jewelry auction, Leo bought 2 entire sets of jewelry in one go, 1 emerald, 1 imperial jade. Value, $200 million. So this is how the rich spend money, in units of hundreds of millions. It was a real eye-opener. I asked cautiously, isn't this a bit much? It's not. Different occasions call for different jewelry. It's a rule, and a symbol of status. In the future, you'll have many more sets. Leo looked at me gently, his moist, almond-shaped eyes incredibly captivating. Thank you, honey. I leaned in and kissed his soft lips, making his face and ears turn red. This time, without any prompting from his mother, Leo suggested we take wedding photos and send out invitations to announce our marriage to the world. That night, Mrs. Maxwell gave me 2 jade bracelets worth millions. Ivy, my son is in your hands now, and I can finally rest easy. Don't worry about the wedding. I'll make sure it's the grandest event, so everyone knows you are the one and only daughter-in-law of the Maxwell family. Ma'am, you're being too formal. After all, the boss paid a premium to hire me. Mrs. Maxwell shot me a playful look. What's this, ma'am? Call me Mom. Mom. She then handed me a heavy box. I opened it and was nearly blinded. It was full of gold bars. I'd hit the jackpot. Leo's condition was visibly improving. At the very least, he was cooperating with the doctor for his physical therapy every day. The wedding hadn't even happened yet, but the senior executives at the Maxwell Group were already causing trouble. At the shareholders' meeting, several of the old guard looked displeased. When I pushed Leo into the conference room, one of the directors immediately stood up and declared, "If Leo insists on marrying her, then I'm quitting the Maxwell Group." My heart sank, then anger flared. What, am I not presentable enough? Uncle Stevens, if you insist on leaving, I won't stop you. But Ivy Song is the woman I'm going to marry, and no one can change that. Mr. Stevens's face turned ashen. Leo, you're being foolish. Serena is such a wonderful girl. Are you really going to let her marry into the Chin family? Leo gave him a cool glance that was nonetheless incredibly intimidating. Uncle Stevens, Serena is your niece, so I understand you're speaking from her perspective. But don't forget, the price for my marrying her was giving her 15% of the company's shares. I disagreed, and she voluntarily broke off the engagement. The Maxwell Group was built by my grandparents and painstakingly managed by my parents for years. How long has it been since my father passed away? The Xia family suddenly cut off all cooperation and tried to pressure me into agreeing. And after my accident, did Serena even come to see me once? The Xia family and Serena were that awful? They didn't just refuse to help Leo in his darkest hour, they tried to carve out a piece of his family's company for themselves. The nerve of some people. Mr. Stevens looked embarrassed but turned his attack on me again. Then what about her? Why are you willing to give her 15% of the shares? This old geezer was clearly just jealous of me. Because I'm his wife. If he doesn't protect me, should he protect an outsider? You're all senior members of this company. Instead of working together to get through this tough time, you're trying to kick the Maxwells while they're down. What good does that do you? Fine, let's say you want to split off and leave. At your age, how many more years can you work to achieve this level of success again? And even if you do start a new company, do you think investors won't do a background check? Who wants an unreliable partner with a history of betrayal? The room fell silent. Leo's index finger tapped slowly on the clean white table. A small smile played on his lips, but his seemingly indifferent eyes held a commanding presence. Ivy's words represent my own. The Maxwell Group isn't what it used to be. If any of you uncles want to leave, I can buy out your shares. But don't forget, if you leave, coming back will be nothing but a pipe dream. At this point, it was a battle of endurance. The old-timers couldn't read Leo's attitude and soon grew restless. A few declared they would support Leo as they always had. For those who were still hesitating, Leo delivered the final blow. Then have the finance department calculate the value of your shares. I'll buy them out at 5% above market price. Later, he told me. He had wanted to clean out these leeches for a long time. The company would take a hit, but it was better than bleeding out slowly. Ivy, you gave me the courage. Huh? I played a part in this? I took full credit. Since I helped you, you have to devote your life to me. No backing out. At that moment, I was giving him a sponge bath. Just as I was about to pull down his pants, Leo stopped my hand. Don't. Oh, he's shy. It's okay, I'm your wife. In a couple of days, we'll be seeing each other in all our glory. What's the rush? Leo's face reddened as he argued, no. Why was he rejecting me? It couldn't be. I stared at his crotch, my eyes widening. He couldn't be unable to perform, could he? Leo gently lifted my chin and said helplessly, don't let your mind wander. Strange. I didn't say anything. How did he know what I was thinking? 2 days later, it was our wedding day. I woke up early to do my makeup, and so did Leo. Mrs. Maxwell had planned the entire wedding, and it was magnificent. Everything was going smoothly, and everyone had a smile on their face. Until the moment Leo was about to place the ring on my finger, when a soft voice called out, "You can't marry her." It really was Serena. She actually dared to crash the wedding. And trailing behind her was that clueless idiot, Chad. "Ignore her. Put the ring on," I reminded him calmly. Serena rushed up to us in a few quick steps, tears streaming down her face. She stared stubbornly at Leo and asked in a choked voice, "Leo, are you really willing to give up on me?" "Wait, who let her in?" Mrs. Maxwell yelled, only to be cut off by Chad. "Mrs. Maxwell, are you really going to stand in the way of true love? You watched Serena grow up. You know how deep her feelings for Leo are. Who the hell do you think you are? It's none of your damn business who my son marries. Shut up. Security, get her off the stage." At the wedding of the great Maxwell heir, a drama of two women fighting over one man was unfolding. The guests were dead silent, their faces full of gossipy delight. A crystal tear slid from the corner of her eye. Serena's stubborn yet pitiful appearance was hard to refuse. But not for me. She was trying to cut off my income stream. That was worse than a mortal enemy. "Get out of the way." I grabbed Leo's hand and firmly placed the ring on my finger. Then I took his face in my hands and kissed him deeply. This time, he closed his eyes, and his right hand moved to the back of my head as he finally opened his mouth. I almost cried with joy. It was a miracle. The boy had learned his lesson. He finally knew how to kiss back. Serena stared blankly at the scene, unable to bear it. She covered her ears and let out a sharp scream. "This can't be happening. It's not like this. Leo Maxwell, I'm the one you love." The deep kiss ended. I shot her a disdainful look. "Miss Serena, stop daydreaming. You weren't even invited to our wedding. Not only did you show up uninvited, but you actually dared to try and steal my husband." If the security guards hadn't arrived in time, my fist would have been in her face. As she was being dragged away, Serena still hadn't given up, screaming, "Leo, say something. I'm the one you really want to marry." Haha. Wishful thinking. As long as Ivy Song is here, no unforgettable first love, no deeply devoted ex, can ever compete with a soft, sweet, and kissable current wife. Leo Maxwell, you can't just watch them treat Serena like this, MMPH. I turned to see my fabulous mother-in-law had grabbed a handful of decorative grass from somewhere and stuffed it into his mouth. Slap, 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 slap. 4 crisp slaps left Chad completely stunned, a dazed look in his eyes. "Who the hell do you think you are, trying to ruin my son and daughter-in-law's wedding?" "Wait." Leo suddenly spoke up, stopping the guards. Serena's face lit up with joy. "Leo, are you willing to run away with me?" At this point, I was speechless. Was this woman blind? Leo was still in a wheelchair. How was he supposed to elope with her? To be honest, I wasn't feeling entirely confident myself. Compared to Serena, I had no long history with him to fall back on. I couldn't help but look at Leo nervously, only to see him extend his hand toward me. Long fingers, a pale, warm palm. I hesitated for 2 seconds before placing my hand in his. A beautiful curve formed on Leo's lips. He picked up the microphone, his voice clear and cool. "The person I love is Ivy." Serena froze for a second, then asked in disbelief, "Then what about me? Do you have no feelings for me at all?" Leo shook his head, his gaze cold, his tone indifferent. "Perhaps there were some, but they were born out of a sense of duty from the engagement our families arranged." "I don't believe you. You spoiled me so much, whatever I liked, you would get from me, we spent so many years together. You can't have no feelings for me." Serena sounded like a scorned woman. Leo frowned slightly. "I can distinguish between a crush and real love. I didn't want to bring up the past, but since you've raised it, I don't want to hide anything from my wife or let her harbor any resentment, so I might as well clear things up. Our engagement was real, but I also knew you had no shortage of admirers, and your heart wasn't entirely with me. As long as you didn't go too far, I was willing to give you and the Xia family face. The color drained from Serena's face. No, it wasn't like that. I was just friends with them. I was only trying to get your attention. I had to laugh. Miss Serena, stop deceiving yourself. In the end, I should thank you. If you hadn't broken off the engagement, who knows when I would have gotten the chance to marry him. You. After the two were escorted out, the wedding continued as planned. With Mrs. Maxwell and Leo backing me up, no one dared to look down on me. On our wedding night, I asked him with a blushing face. Why did you stand up for me in front of everyone? Because I love you. Those 5 simple words explained everything. Leo looked at me seriously. You might not believe this, but for some reason, I have no resistance to you at all. It sounded like a cheesy line he'd found online. Leo, being very perceptive, noticed and raised his eyebrows. You don't believe me? No, I do. No, you don't. Hey, why was he getting so worked up? I grabbed his tie, and he leaned in and kissed me. Our wedding night was a raging fire. The next day, when I opened my eyes, it was already 10 in the morning. Leo was smiling at me. Good morning, wifey. Good morning, honey. I jolted awake. Mrs. Maxwell, no, Mom, said she'd give me $5 million after the wedding. I immediately grabbed my phone. Sure enough, there was a notification for a $5 million deposit. Let the caregiver help you get dressed. He suddenly grabbed my hand. Why? Where are you going? I'm going to serve tea to my mother-in-law, of course. My mother-in-law really kept her word. It was so touching. Leo was confused. Didn't we already do that yesterday? This is different. Mom is my idol. You've changed. He looked at me resentfully. You don't love me anymore now that you've got me. In the end, are you with me, or are you with my mom? Hey. You can't say that. I was so flustered I was stammering. He should think about who was the one who pushed me away at the beginning. After a lot of coaxing, he finally agreed to leave the room. The butler said Mrs. Maxwell wasn't home. From now on, it was just the two of us. She wouldn't interfere. Just then, a voice message from my mother-in-law popped up on my phone. Daughter-in-law, keep up the good work. I want to be holding a grandbaby soon. My happy days with Leo didn't last long. I woke up one morning, and my world had collapsed. I was trending on social media. Maxwell daughter-in-law bar hostess. Ivy Song escort. Ivy Song saleswoman. Street performer. The internet detectives dug deep, and what they found was shocking. I'd been working part-time jobs since I was in school. In middle school, I'd run errands for classmates, like getting lunch or copying homework. In high school, I'd forge the principal's signature and write love letters for others. In college, I tutored and worked at a coffee shop. After graduating college, I was juggling 3 jobs. A corporate drone by day, a bartender by night, and on weekends, I'd walk dogs and pet sit. The online comments were brutal. Is Ivy Song just insane for money? What's wrong with a woman who hustles? Honestly, I respect Ivy Song. If I had her drive, I'd be rich by now too. She scrambled to become a rich family's daughter-in-law. It's obviously for the money. She's a gold digger. What's wrong with liking money? Being a rich man's wife is better than being a poor man's wife. The Maxwells really messed up this time, picking a bar hostess as a daughter-in-law. How embarrassing. She probably has AIDS or something. What good can you expect from a bar girl? On the other hand, this woman looks full of life. Can I get her secret? The comments were a mix, but most of them called me shameless and money-grubbing. At that moment, two usernames stood out. One was, Ivy Song is the best daughter-in-law. Were you raised on shit? Can't stand to see others succeed? Sour grapes. It's my money and my family, I'll do what I want. The other was, I am Ivy Song's husband. Legal team is on it. I'm suing them for everything they've got. The trending topics came and went quickly. But one person was still hung up on my part-time job at the bar, Serena. She still hadn't given up and had shown up at our gate. The butler said, Miss Xia, please go home. The young master will not see you. Serena replied slowly, then I'll wait until he comes out. I can go without food, water, or sleep. If that wasn't shameless, I don't know what is. I put my hand on Leo's as he reached for the wheelchair controls. In a firm voice, I said, I'll handle this one personally. She dared to try and steal my husband. She really didn't know who she was messing with. The door opened. Serena's face lit up when she saw me, then instantly fell. Why is it you? I want to see Leo. I leaned against the doorframe with my arms crossed and let out a cold laugh. Did you really think digging up some dirt on my past would be enough to ruin my reputation and make my husband divorce me? Serena, you're so naive. You don't even understand the real problem between you and him. You just kept demanding he give you everything. But what about you? What do you have that's worth my husband's love? Because you're a rich beauty? Or because you were childhood sweethearts? Don't be stupid. My husband was never in love with you. Serena looked like she was about to collapse. You're lying. Let me see Leo. I want to talk to him face to face. Too late. You ran faster than anyone when he got hurt. You had all that time from his accident until now, and you didn't talk to him then. You wait until we're married? What are you trying to pull? He's my husband now, and I won't give you any chance. You don't cherish what you have, and now it's too late for regrets. If you don't leave, I swear I'll call the police and report you for harassment. Serena left, looking completely deflated. Oh, wait, one more thing. Miss Serena, I forgot to tell you a couple of things. Serena turned back, her eyes vacant. Thank you for maliciously spreading my past all over the internet. It only made him pity me more and love me more. But don't forget, malicious cyberbullying is illegal. The Maxwell Group's legal department will be sending you a letter. See you in court. Our married life was as sweet as honey. Leo could even stand up and take a few steps. And I was pregnant. When we heard it was twins, my mother-in-law was overjoyed. She had already booked the best postpartum care center and nannies. I gave birth to 2 boys, and my mother-in-law couldn't stop smiling. She couldn't get enough of the 2 babies, and she declared, just keep having them. We can afford it. The next year, I was pregnant again. You can't blame me. It was Leo. Every day, he was like an insatiable beast, trying to wear me out in bed. When I found out I was pregnant, I was actually happy. At least I could get a few months of rest. My mother-in-law said with a smile, we have boys. If this one's a girl, we'll have the complete set. Her words were prophetic. It really was a little princess. The villa was large, but there were kids running everywhere. When all 3 children called her grandma at once, my mother-in-law was constantly playing referee. At first, she was happy about it, but gradually, she started to get worn out. She loved them all equally, and it was hard to soothe any one of them when they got upset. If one started crying, the other 2 would immediately join in, creating a 3-part harmony. My mother-in-law grew visibly haggard, and the light in her eyes began to dim. On our little princess's 2nd birthday, Leo excitedly announced, Mom, Ivy's pregnant again. The Maxwells are no longer a family with only 1 son per generation. My mother-in-law's eyes went wide, her mouth twitching. Son, there's no need to rush. At least let Ivy take a break, and let me catch my breath. But Mom, I thought you said the kids were cute. If they're cute, let's have a few more. It's not like our family can't afford it. My mother-in-law immediately shot back. It's not a question of whether we can afford it, it's a question of whether I can handle it. We had nannies and caregivers, but my mother-in-law was meticulous and always said it was best to do things herself. Mom. Stop. Son, are you sure you're paralyzed? You forgot, Mom. I've been better for a long time. Bonus chapter. I didn't like Ivy's song at first. But I didn't dislike her either. I always felt like I had seen her somewhere before. She was passionate, fiery, loved to tease me, but she was never annoying. She was a light in my life, giving me hope. The first time she stood before me, defending my honor, a voice in my head said, "It's her." I fell in love with Ivy's song. Later, it wasn't until she was being trashed on social media that I found out she was an orphan. She told me she had seen me at the orphanage when we were kids. I was there in a neat little suit, all clean and proper, seriously handing out candy to every child. She had been pushed down by a taller kid, and I was the one who helped her up, comforted her, and gave her a delicate little bunny keychain. She said it was the sweetest candy she'd ever tasted. That little bunny keychain was many years old. The color had faded, the paint had chipped, and it was dull. But she still kept it in her purse. Because it was the first gift she had ever received. Ivy says that being able to protect the person she loves for a lifetime is her blessing. But she doesn't know that getting to marry her is mine. Ivy's song, "I Love You,"